Hello and welcome to Halcyon Blink. On this episode I'm going to be doing something slightly different. And the reason for that is I'm not going to be reviewing a film, I'm going to be comparing two at the same time because they share the same name. And seeing which is best, because with no word of irony or sarcasm, I don't really know which of these films is better because of the tone and the way that they sat in the time that they were released. So I thought I'd sit down and once and for all debate in my own head and film for your general amusement my debate between which is better, the original Judge Dredd or Dredd 3D. So on the one hand, you have a film that forces you through the cinematic equivalent of waterboarding in having to watch Rob Schneider in a sidekick role. And on the other hand, you have to sit through a film that has no real sense of urgency from the main character, given that Karl Urban's Dredd is basically Doom Guy with God mode turned on. But while both of the films had shortcomings, I feel they both had some real strong points as well. I mean, looking at the original campy version for a kickoff, I wanted a lawgiver when I was a kid. I mean, I was far too young to be watching these films. Thank you very much, Mummy and Daddy. It was just the coolest fictional gun ever. It was like the Johnny 7 RMA gun of my generation.
Grenade. Grenade.
A few moments later.
Justice! Lawgiver, man! No, they're booby trapped!
And more than that, as bad as the film's acting was, no one could shout names like Sylvester Stallone can. But with Karl Urban's Dredd, there can be no denying who was the bigger badass of the two, given that Urban rocked the role and sold the shit out of this stoic and faithful portrayal of Dredd, with Urban undergoing various physical training regimens to prepare him for the role for a combat-hardened version of the 13th Precinct Dredd.
You got 5.
Thanks for the heads up.
A few moments later.
Choke on it, Dredd. Choke on that.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
And throughout the course of filming the film, basically lost his voice. Trying to keep this graveled voice going for 90 minutes wasn't really that easy. And people give Christian Bale a hard time for doing that, but it must have been hell on his voice. However, the reason why I struggle to separate the two is simple. They both, ironically enough, suffer from two fundamental issues: a bland setting and weak villains, both of which leave the films feeling somehow lopsided affairs, with Dredd being on screen way too much, with not enough in the way of stakes or hurdles or tasks being put in front of them that would actually cause some jeopardy. So the way I've devised to try and break up these two films is simple. You compare their highest highs, their lowest lows, and you see which one comes out on top. And ironically enough, the original Dredd's film, its high moment is also its low moment. The opening segment. I mean, let's just run it down. There's so much wrong with this segment. Spandex and armor that even stormtroopers would deem useless.
This armor's useless! Why do we even wear it?
Not to mention the corniest dialogue.
This room has been pacified.
And Rob Schneider adding comic relief where it was not needed. But in the same scene, when Sylvester Stallone cracks open his lawgiver and starts raining justice on these fools. It's cool as f***, mainly because Sylvester Stallone, you know, he doesn't need to sell a lot when he's just saying rapid fire.
Full auto. Rapid fire. Rapid fire.
And just mows down people. It's really, like I say, it's insanely cool for the gadget aspect of the film. Now, considering the low moments there, comparing that with the low moments of Carl Urban's film, well, for me it's simple. It's the reason why it's in 3D, the slow-mo moments. We get it already. The drug makes you see things in slow motion. Not every thing has to happen in slow motion, for God's sake. But then compare that with Carl Urban's highest moment in the film, that monologue in the phone booth that you all saw in the trailers, that just sets the tone for the final 20 minutes of the film, even with the stakes being raised, bringing in more judges for him to combat, which is a legit threat, albeit because he has no gun, they're fully armed and trained just as much as him. It's kind of a weird thing to put in the way, and he kind of loses. You know, it's like, you know, but then he gets up and tapes up his gun wound like it's nothing. It's, again, God mode, I guess.
This block operates under the same rules as the rest of the city. Mama is not the law. I am the law.
But the fact is, the soundtrack, action, and the monologue of the final act give me legit goosebumps when I watch it, just because of its intensity, its ferocity, and the emergence of a strong female badass from a shrinking Violet displaying a character arc that is actually worth talking about. There can only be one winner. And adding into that, the character arc of the original Dredd's film being that of a, you know, she's supposed to be a judge, yet she gets her ass saved as much as she helps Dredd, with the exception of one pull-up at the end of the film. Compared that to the female protagonist of the second film, who gets captured, sure, but she fights her way out and then saves Dredd legit. There's just no comparing the two films. There is really only one winner of the two. Dredd 3D is the superior of the two and earns a 7 out of 10 rating from me because it just has too many pitfalls for me to recommend as a truly great film. It's a decent action romp, but one that's forgettable. You won't really be rushing back to see it again anytime soon. Sylvester Stallone's earns a 6 out of 10, which might be generous considering what I've just said about Urban's and Stallone's back-to-back, but it's the one I can find myself watching over and over again because of how bad it can be at times and how quirky and corny it is for its time, proving that I perhaps just wasted the last 10 minutes of all of our lives. My bad. I still think Dredd 3D is better though. So on that note, thank you very much for watching the Halcyon Blink. Please like, share and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this video, I would much appreciate you do one of those 3 things. Or better yet, check out some of the other content creators in the description below. I'm sure they'd appreciate a watch, a like, a share, maybe even a subscribe if you can muster it. They'd really appreciate it. So thanks very much again for watching. You guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.